212. One, two, 1, 2.
Yes. Good evening and welcome to the Budget and Finance Committee. Today is Wednesday, January 11th, 2023. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. We have a few things that we need to go through today, but before we do that, I would like to call my colleagues to my right. We have Councilor District C, Gregory del Rosario. To my left, we have Councilor at Large, Ana Levy, and Council President, Councilor District E, District F, Mr. LaPlante. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Act of 2022, this meeting of the Budget and Finance Committee is being conducted both in person and via remote participation. A reminder that a person who would like to listen or to view these meetings while in progress might either attend in person or at the location, one of the following access locations: the Facebook Lawrence City Council page or the YouTube Lawrence City Council page. So tonight we have no minutes to approve, and we're going to right away jump into the items that we have on the agenda. So as a new business, we have item 0223, which is the appropriation transfer of the Recreation Department, $62,000 from the salary line item to the purchase and services line item. This was put together by the mayor of the city of Lawrence, Brian De Peña. So if we can go through, anybody from the administration that would like to go over this transfer, we might have some questions.
Pardon me, I didn't put it on the agenda, but for the mayor's office, but I know it's a transfer from salaries to a professional service line item so they can use it for some outside contractor help. Other purchase services is a line item, $62,000 from salary wages to other purchase services, and as it indicates in a memo, to hire an independent contractor to work in the recreation department. That's the memo.
So currently, how many people we have working on this department?
I don't have I believe there's only on the payroll, like 1 or 2 people. I mean, they don't have, they use a lot of temporary help in the summertime. That's a separate line item. They spend around $20,000 a year. I think I printed it out here somewhere. Yeah, they spent, in temporary wages, they spent about $66,000. They had a budget of $84,000, so they have remaining $18,000 in their temporary salary line item. The permanent salary wages, they have budgeted 169,000, but they've only paid out 54,000 of wages. That's why I think it's just one person. So they have a couple of vacancies there.
Currently, this position was budgeted out as $65,000, and we only transferring $62,000.
Well, it's 169,000 is the budget for permanent salaries, and they've only spent 54,000 out of that 169. So they're going to end the year with like $70,000 in that line item. So I guess the mayor's request, or the recreation request to the mayor, was to move some money from the salary line item to temporary or other purchase of services, so they could hire some temporary help to help them get through the year.
Councilors, there's any questions on this item? I'm gonna extend another question to, if it's none, I'm gonna extend another question to the advisor of the mayor, so if you can please join us. Name and address for the record, please.
Octavian Spanish, Senior Advisor of the Mayor, Mayor De Peña, 200 Common Street, 3rd floor.
All right, once we were on the budget process back in June, we saw this position being budgeted for $65,000. Did you guys hire anybody in the meantime?
No.
I know that the department have 2 people working there.
Yes, one position is on a contractual position, I think, because of the amount of work that is required. But we haven't, there's only one person that is a city employee, but the other individual is a contractor.
I think you're wrong.
There's no 2 positions.
There's two, pardon me, let me get the microphone. There are 2 employees in the recreation department, and as I said, they've expended 55,000 through January 6th. And that's a recreation supervisor and then a secretary position. The secretary primarily gets paid out of recreation, but does some work out of, for some boards and commissions as well. Those are the 2 people on the payroll.
Yeah, on the payroll, sorry, my apologies.
So, and there is any difficulties hiring a 3rd person as it was planned back then in June? Because everybody was excited about this position when we actually saw it, because it was a need, and we thought that the recreation department was gonna be more active.
Well, what we're doing is also, like not only with the recreation department, but the same applies to some of the others, including planning and community development. We're holding until, when it comes to salary adjustments and also the distribution of different responsibilities. So now we are looking at filling positions that are still pending.
So,
Across the board.
so under that department, there is not any new person working there?
No,
Only the 2 that was traditional working
yes.
there? There is a lot of things around these positions, specifically that one, because it was so much in need back then.
Yes, it's still, Counselor. The only thing is that we're also looking at the different workload, the responsibilities that each one of them have. And we are aware of it, but we're holding, and it's not the end of the budget year yet. So we're working diligently to fill positions.
So walk me through how you guys gonna hire somebody to do recreation now? I mean, recreation, how we gonna spend this $62,000? Because, to me, it's a no-brainer to hire somebody, but from the mayor's perspective, what are you guys gonna,
What
pay
we're
our
looking
contractor
at
to?
first is the priorities based on the different parks, different organizations that work in the park, the different districts that we have and the responsibilities of the employees that we have right now, what they're concentrating on, and then we will determine hire the person based on the need.
Not fully 100% with what you have presented, but I mean, I open the floor to the councilors and take any motions. Any questions in regard to this? I open for motion. There's a motion to approve or send it to the full council with a favorable recommendation?
Yes, please.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion.
Discussion, Councilor LaPlante. Council President LaPlante.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So through you, I think let me just kind of continue on with your question. So there's a shift from hiring somebody to then going with the contractor. What's the advantage behind going to a contractor as opposed to a staff, a permanent staff that's working for us?
Well, it reduces, initially is we're looking at, you don't pay benefits when you hire a contractor. It saves the city money. And it goes also based on the expertise and also of the functioning. Like, for instance, Parks and Rec, there were different discussions and also recommendations from the current staff in which we had to evaluate if the information provided was accurate or not. Because, as you all know, we have been working with different, including some of the councilors, that, these volunteer groups that are working with different leagues brought to the mayor's attention their discontent. Others, it's not about discontent, it's about the workload and what the city can offer in addition to, the help that we can offer them. So the mayor decided, hey, listen, before we hire a person full-time, let's wait and see, what is it? We anticipated that we need an additional person, which we need, but we're looking at if it's more effective for us to hire someone on a contractor basis and then on a full-time basis.
Let me just leave you with this question through you, Mr. Chairman. So what is the biggest need that this vendor is going to need to address?
Working with the different, I would call them leagues, or those that, people that use the different clubs that are using the different sites. I mean, the park, maintaining them clean. How is it that they themselves can generate, be self-supportive and maintain the properties in order, and have more activities as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, there is any question?
Yes.
Councilor Levy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Recreation Department is under what department? Yes.
It's under Health and Human Services.
On the Health and Human Service?
Yes, but the mayor has it right now, a specific attention to it. So basically, the mayor meets directly with the Parks and Rec and also the HHS director in terms of. Health and Human Services
okay.
Director, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions in regard to this item? All right, I call the questions. Councilor Rosario?
Yes.
Councilor LaPlante?
Yes.
Councilor Levy?
Yes.
And I vote present. Next item on the agenda is motion pass. Next item on the agenda is item 0323, which is the appropriation of free cash of $99,440 to the Green Community Competition Grant Programs. It was put together by Mr. McCarthy. Name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Daniel McCarthy, Director of Planning and Development. My office is at 12 Methuen Street. Here tonight to request the appropriation of free cash for the project that you had approved a grant several months ago. It's a Green Communities Grant. This is money that is to be invested in energy-saving methods to city buildings. The project in total is approximately $300,000. When we first received this, there was an indication that there would be a match from rebates from the energy companies but after discussing this with the finance office, it was realized that those rebates will not be coming directly back as part of this grant, so that the city has to match it through free cash. So this was one of the projects that we identified to the mayor, and he approved it. By moving this project along, it frees us up to continue in the program with Green Communities. We have a consultant working with the city, Anil Navkar. I think you've all met Anil, and he has been conducting a number of audits on different buildings to do energy savings throughout the city. So these are the projects that we need to get finished to move towards the next step of getting the other projects in the line. So I know Anil came to you with an explanation of the audit and breakdown. I can answer any questions about the program itself or this particular project. It's fairly straightforward, replacement of lights and improvements to heating systems within the school and within the city hall.
Okay. Councilors, a grant of $199,996 was honored to the city, and the city need to match $99,440 for the grant to be able to work in favor of the any project.
Yep. So, and I should mention, based on what the numbers getting back from the audit, we should be getting about $70,000 back in energy credits from both National Grid and Eversource as a result of this.
And just to clarify, so this is gonna be for changing the lighting on the school system and City Hall?
Correct. LED lighting installations in the South Lawrence East School, and some valves and thermostats to maximize the energy consumption. And
So this grant was discussed like three months ago, right?
that's right. That was the grant you approved. This is our match.
All right, so we will discuss this grant before. Councilors, there's any questions in regard to this item?
Yes, I do.
Councilor Levy?
Thank you, Council. The $70,000 that you said that we're gonna get back the rebate.
Yes.
Well, no, he said that it's gonna be about,
It's an
75.
estimate. So over the next 2 years, we have to file reports on the energy savings that we realize from the installation of these measures. And anything that we save will come back as a rebate on the bills to the schools, as far as, in which the city pays. The city pays those bills. And so there'll be a net savings from from that. The money's not gonna come back to this program, but it will come back to the city in some form of savings.
so practically it's
So-
gonna be refunded in the free cash.
Excuse me?
It's gonna be again back to the free cash.
It won't go back to free cash.
It
no.
won't go back to
will
free
not.
cash.
It'll come back to the city as far as, it'll be a rebate on the gas bill and a rebate on the electric bill for the city.
Okay.
So the city will realize $70,000 in the savings for the expenditure of $98,000 towards these.
But the grant is gonna be for 3 years, did you say?
The savings is gonna go on for years. The net savings on energy, we should be at a zero sum, depending on the project, we should be at a zero sum between 3 and 5 years. So whatever money we expend, we should save in 3 to 5 years. These aren't the savings on our bills. The rebate is an actual cash back to the city from the energy company in the form of that. It's an incentive for us to change these, to go to these energy-saving types of lighting and mechanisms.
Okay, but the only amount that we are going to get is the 199,
Correct,
that's it.
correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Rosario?
Thank you, through you, Chair. When we said to use and upgrade municipal buildings, we had this discussion a long time ago, and I remember this. municipal buildings, and clearly says here, South Lawrence East Elementary School. Now, we're talking plurals, right? And I don't see it in writing. We're talking the schools and municipal buildings.
It's the South Lawrence East.
So why we are not as specific? This money was the money requested back in those days when we tabled it for the South Lawrence East School, when we brought up the Arlington School now being upgraded. What is the change on the grant?
I
Why
think in the handout that I gave, and it identifies the 4 programs, and it says South Lawrence East School, South Lawrence East School, South Lawrence East School, and City Hall. It should be a document like this.
Once again, we're gonna go back to the conversation that we had back in those days. Again, it's going to a South Lawrence East School. We have done any upgrades at the Arlington School? When they didn't have no AC, the power, it's bad, none of that. So we stay strictly to South Lawrence East. This grant is not helping anybody else but South Lawrence East, which it have money put into the AC system. What you're doing is changing the thermostats on it, which is the system, the AC system in there was upgraded. So we're not moving any money to any other school but the South Lawrence East School.
We spent over $3 million on the Arlington School. I provided those documents after Councilor Payano questioned the cooling system at the Arlington School, mentioning that he'd gone there in the summer and that the teachers are bringing their own air conditioners. We put more than $3 million into installations and new upgrading the system of the fan, as well as repairing the roof at the Arlington School. So between that time, the money we're talking about, the reason it's the South Lawrence East School, it's the same project that we talked about. This hasn't changed. The work hasn't been done. We were required to make this match, and the money wasn't available until the free cash issued this year.
Was that the same amount, the same item, the same work order that you said that you needed?
It was.
Like 3 weeks to get it approved, which we were gonna lose the money? And then when we went back, it was like, what, a year to use the money?
I didn't say we're gonna lose the money. What I said was, we would lose another round, which we did lose. We weren't able to get in. We were supposed to be submitting last year for the next round, but we won't be able to submit till the spring round, and we've just accepted that.
And was this the same, you said that we already had a contractor to go inside and work, and we didn't see any work order or any companies that actually bid for it? There was no bidding open or anything, but back in those days, you tell us that it was already a contractor ready to go into South Lawrence East School to work in that school.
That's correct.
Without any bidding process, we already had a company ready to go and work.
That's correct.
No more question. Thank you, Chair.
Councilors, there is any other questions in regard to this item? Hi, there is any motions?
Motion to approve?
Can I hear a second?
Second.
There is a motion on the table, properly second. Any questions? If there is none, I call the questions. Council President LaPlante?
Yes.
Councilor Levy?
Yes.
Councilor Rosario?
Abstain.
And I vote yes.
Thank you.
Motion is approved. Next item on the agenda is item 0523, which is the authorization to spend grant of $250,500 for the 2023 Sharon grants. This is in regard to the police department. So now we would like to spend the floor to Rosa Chirpa,
Yes.
right? So name and address for the record, and please explain to us the money.
Sure, my name is Rosa Shepard, and I'm the Director of Support Services at the Lawrence Police Department, and I'm here to request to spend the funds for the fiscal year 2023 for the Senator Charles Shannon, known as the Shannon Grant, which is $250,500. The City of Lawrence, by and through the Police Department, has been awarded this grant to spend for the providing fund for the Police Department to run the Junior Police Academy, which is a multi-program that runs from June to July, open gyms, And the programs currently run on Mondays and Tuesdays at the Gilman School and Thursdays at the South Lawrence, as well to pay for the overtime for the anti-gang enforcement purpose, including extra patrols in areas known to be the hot spots for the gang activity. It will also help programs such as the YMCA, YWCA, the Boys and Girls Club, Family Services at the Merrimack Valley, at Lawrence Family Development and Education, and Change the Play.
Thank you for the explanation. Thank you for that, for the information you provide. Councilors, I open the floor to a motion or any questions. Is there any motion?
Motion to send it up to full council, fully recommended.
Can I hear a second?
Second?
Discussion.
Discussion, Council President LaPlante.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. So I had a nice conversation with the police chief earlier today regarding this, and as Ms. Shepherd just mentioned, there are a number of different vendors that the money is going toward. There's about 6 or 7 vendors or contractors that are going to take this part of this money and apply it for a variety of programs throughout the city. One of the things that I asked the chief, I said, we've been doing this for some time. I said, when is there like a review process of this? And this actually started before he actually got there. And so I think the time is about right now to bring some of the vendors in so we can learn a little bit more about what they do, some of the successes, what their programs are. I don't think we necessarily need to hold it back at this committee, although we can if the committee wants to. But I would, but in talking to the chief, he mentioned, if you want to do something, bring the vendors in, have them talk a little bit about what they do. So whether we do it here or we do it at the full council meeting, it doesn't make a difference, but I think it'd be worth our while, since we haven't done this in some time, to really listen to what these organizations do to assist many in our city. So I'm not sure what the right amendment is. I'll defer to the committee as to how they want to deal with it.
I'll withdraw my motion.
I mean, to keep the discussion going. A motion's been withdrawn. Councilor, there is any motion on the table to keep the discussion open?
So we can send it to the full council as a committee report, but also we can get it the vendor over there to discuss within this program.
All right, there is a motion to send this out
Second.
to the full council as a committee report with no recommendation, but before that, we have other questions. So,
And then, Mr. Chairman, just so I'm clear on the motion, does that also include an invitation for the vendors to be present at the next council meeting to discuss their programs?
that will include an invitation to the different vendors that are beneficiary of this grant. So before we move forward to that, wait, I have other questions. So on here, you said that this is specifically for kids that are anywhere between age of 12 to 18.
Yes.
So 12 years old is ideally what are the kids that possibly are at risk. But currently, we're seeing kids that are not necessarily within that age that are also at risk, especially when we have some situations, difficulties, lack of resource for kids a little younger. And I'm wondering to see if within the spectrum of the grant, if we can reduce the age anywhere between maybe 10, 11 years old to 18. Just probably asking the grant providers to see if that's something that it can be done. And the reason that I'm asking that is currently the Open Gym, it's a great program, but there is a lot of kids that they cannot go because starting at 7th grade. So they cannot play basketball. They're looking forward, for, especially in the winter month, to actually take advantage of the Open Gym. And I have discussed this with the chief, but it's a matter of identifying funds to be able to maybe have another set of, or another tier of the same program that benefits in those kids anywhere between 4th grade to 7th grade, and then they take full advantage of the rest of the program. So I'm wondering to see if that's a possibility that we can have this conversation before the next full council, so we might be able to not necessarily readjust the funds, but think outside of the box and see how we can help those kids as well. Because currently, kids that are 12 years old, they might be exposed already to different gang activities. If we can talk to them a little earlier, I think that it will be successful to do some type of preventive work instead of a reaction to the already targeted age, anywhere between 12 to 18.
Yes, that is something that I can definitely talk to the program manager and explain, because we do research and we do crime analysis before, we submit reports, core reports, to let them know exactly what the programs are doing to help the kids. But that is something that I can actually bring up to the program manager to see how can we, I wouldn't say fix, but to include it into this grant.
Yeah, and essentially, I'm pretty sure that when it comes to crime prevention and possibly any type of kids exposed to gang activities, we can see and maybe evaluate the amount of money that goes towards the open gym specifically, and see if we can expand that and to go down to 4th grade, 5th grade, and see how much that's gonna cost, because everything is about funding, right? So how much that will cost, and see if the city might be able to match that portion of the grant to be able to expand the program and be able to benefit those kids that are, they're just looking at it. When you go to the open gym, they're not allowed because the rules. And I'm wondering, what are the rules? I mean, that's something that I just, discussed with the chief during the Christmas time. And we were like, okay, next year, let's talk about it. So I think that this is the right time.
Yeah. Now, for the now that will be for the next application, because this application is already done and approved for what the budget that we send. But definitely we can bring it in for the next for the opening application, which is pretty sure was at the end December. Yeah.
This application is for January going forward.
Exactly. Yeah, going forward.
We've done city-funded open gyms in the past.
Yeah, we have done that before, but actually, as a matter of fact, we actually started up the one on South Lawrence East based on the city funding. So what I'm trying to see if how much the open gym might cost for them to be able to expand to reduce the grade to 4th grade, and see how much that means, and might be able to open that discussion with the administration to see if we might be able to actually serve those kids to through the open gym, and be able to allow them to play basket. I mean, I think that's the only thing they ask.
Okay. So you're looking to allocate money from this fund? Okay, I understand.
Not just to expand to see if we might be able to do so.
Okay.
But we need to get a number of how much that will cost.
Yes.
Councilor Rosette?
Through you, can I add to it? Again, we go in through the same vendors, and we same vendors every year. Some vendors, they get the money that they're gonna, and this discussion, we had it before, and the vendors do not adjust the age. Or the state, yeah, but I mean, we should ask the vendors to see if they can.
Like the state sets a guideline. The vendors
Okay, all right, but again, so, once again, I mean, the beneficiaries of this are the vendors, and the vendors are the same vendors over and over and over and over. And the questions that I always raise is, why don't we get all the vendors? Why don't we get the opportunity to all the programs? Why always the Boys Club, the YMCA, the biggest, I call it grand diggers. I mean, they all over these things every year. And there's more sports activities for small clubs or small groups providing things for these people, for these kids, they are actually are at risk. And the same vendors every single year, it hasn't changed. Before I got elected, I used to sit down there and the same vendors for the year, for every year, and why don't we change? Why it's not changing? But that's okay. I mean, it's something to look at. I mean, every time this come up, Councilor Rodriguez also said that, why don't we change the age? It's not the first time we had this conversation, but that's okay. I would love eventually to see another vendor that's not the YMCA, it's not the Boys Club. It's not that they're not doing the job, but I feel that we don't do extra. We just sit there because we know they're gonna come in and we're gonna put them in. And there's other institutions doing better job to me than the YMCA and the Boys Club. But it's easy to find them. I mean, they're the biggest. But to me, there's other institutions that are doing better work with kids. They are really, really at risk. There's institution that goes into the project. The YMCA do not go through a project to find the kids. There's institution that drive those kids with their own money. The YMCA do not drive the kids with their own money. Unless we fund them, unless you get a grant and give it to the YMCA does not, the Boys Club does not have a program that can go into the project, drive these kids, put them to play, bring it back home, find them lunches and all that stuff. We need to find a better way to find better vendors, to me. But that's okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, will you?
Councilor Levy?
Two things. I want to remind you that the next full committee, the next full, city council meeting is next Tuesday. So we are inviting those people to come to us for next Tuesday.
Okay.
And also, we would like to get a copy of the grant. Can you forward to us the grant copy through the email?
Sure.
Right? So, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I think that, do we
Then
have
also-
any other question?
I've just
Comment. Just to clarify what my colleague is saying for you, the application, what they are applying and saying they're gonna spend the money on, I think is, what is of interest. And I think also of interest
is if this is a
part of a bigger program. Let's say there's a program going on, I don't care what vendor it is. There's a program
going on with that vendor, and the entire cost of the program is $100,000, and we're chipping in $20,000 or whatever the dollar amount is. I'm very curious to see, because I think there's a connection between that $100,000 program and the 20 or whatever the dollar amount that we're putting in. I'd like to see the whole spectrum of what our money is being applied to in that entire program. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. And then the other thing too, if you wouldn't mind being so helpful through you, Mr. Chair, of contacting the vendors from your office, that would be helpful since you've got the relationship with them, and I'm not sure if our staff here knows exactly who to contact. That would be useful.
Sure.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I just want one last question. You mentioned that the open gym happened on Monday, Tuesday at the Gilmet, and then Thursday at the South Lawrence East?
Yes.
Okay. And at what time?
Do we have the time? No, I'm not sure of the
Do you
time.
mind emailing to me?
I can find out.
Because I want to go and play.
I can do that.
Thank you. Councilors, I call the questions. Councilor Rosario,
Yes.
Councilor Levy,
Yes.
Council President LaPlante,
Yes?
and I vote yes.
And when you do go, let me know. I'll join you.
You, Chair.
Thank you.
So, Councilor Rosario?
Can we take item 42922 out of order?
Item 429 and 22, which is the transfer of free cash of $5 million to the DPW for different equipment and infrastructure improvement for 2024. It was put together by Jorge Jaime, the DPW director. I will call the question. There is a second.
Second?
Call the question. Council President LaPlante,
Yes.
Council Levy,
Yes.
Councilor Rosario,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So now at this point, councilors, we have item 42922, which is the transfer of free cash of $5 million to the DPW and different department, and different improvement. So at this point, councilors, I'm gonna just name and address for the record and open the floor to the director of the DPW.
Good evening, councilors. Jorge Jaime, Public Works Director, 200 Common Street. I'm here on behalf of the mayor and the Department of Public Works to request a transfer from free cash of $5 million to DPW to work in different projects. So we sit down with the mayor's office, and the amount of requests that we have is unbelievable. So I think if I put a number together, it goes over $20 million right now. But to start, we're asking for $5 million to work on city park improvements, city buildings improvements, city garage and parking lots, citywide street paving and sidewalk improvements, street signs, pedestrians crosswalks, conversion of two-way streets to one-way streets to improve our traffic, new equipments for the Department of Public Works, including streets and parks, buildings and facilities, illuminating city parks, city yard improvements, pavement markings, and the beautification of the entries of the city of Lawrence. So if you have any questions, so I'm open now.
Councilors, any questions in regard to this item, $5 million from free cash to the DPW department? Councilperson LaPlante?
I just want to say, through you, Mr. Chairman, welcome back, Director Jaime. It is so good to see you. I am so happy that you're here. I don't want to go into too much detail, but knowing what you went through recently and that you're back here working and doing the very best for our city again, you're a sight for sore eyes, and we're so happy that to see you back in the building and working. So continued good health to you. I appreciate the wish list of $20 million. How is this? So this is non-capital improvements, or or a mixture?
Yeah, they're gonna be in the accounts of capital improvements to be able to use it, not just this year, but in the next few years too.
So I mean, much of my questions actually will be for the budget, the CAFO, but I'm interested in more of the detail later about, what does it mean for city park improvements? What does it mean for city yard improvements? What do those things mean? I see the line, and this is an excellent synopsis, but I'd like to get more detail, maybe a paragraph as to what that means, as opposed to a line as to what that means.
So to give you some examples, like we can go to Cronin Park and see that the playground needs some improvements, so more lighting. And if you go to the ball fields, some of them, we need to redo the infields because the softball leagues are complaining about the conditions of the infields. That's something that we need to do. We are a city where we have a big amount of softball players, and they love softball. And to keep them out of the streets, we need to keep the parks in a good standing condition. So if you go like to the amount of parks that we are building right now, or renovating, so to maintain them, we need new equipment. If you drive by General Hospital right now on Prospect Street, you're gonna see that beautiful park that is being renovated there. But so nobody has, request or asked the Department of Public Works, how are we going to maintain those hills over there? We don't even have the equipment able to go on those hills and mow that grass over there. So it's something that we have to think about. When we build new parks, we need to know that we need the equipment to maintain those parks, or the right equipment to maintain those parks. So like the common across the street, we need more lighting, we need more trees over there. So there is a big amount of projects that we have to do in the parks that I can stay here all night telling you about each and every one of those.
So the request that I would have would be just, not to add more work, but it's really helpful when we see I don't need a 20-page paper of this, but a paragraph of 4 or 5 lines under each one of these that gives context to exactly what you're saying. And I realize that in each one of these 12 items, is there more than 12? 12 items, that there may be, that you don't really know exactly what it is. It may be a need that comes that's unforeseen, that's gonna happen next year. All of a sudden, there'll be a curbing that needs to be replaced, or something that you don't know about it now. So I understand that, but
We do not want to work like on studies right now, at least that we have the fundings available, because we're not able even to go out to bid if we don't have the funding. So we would like to secure the money and then go and identify most of the issues. We already have a lot of them identified, but I know that I receive calls from all the councilors every day about some issues in their districts, and let's say sidewalks, like I specified there. Sidewalks is very expensive, let me tell you. So when you look at the prices to do like a little piece of sidewalks, you prefer to do 2-3 roads that you can do with the same amount of money, and it's unbelievable on the price. So, but we do not want to specify the amount of money that we're gonna spend in every of these different items, because we need like to go out there knowing what we have and how much we can spend on those projects. But you can make sure that we're gonna do a good use of that. So I remember when I was hired as a DPW director, I received quotes from before of like fixing the garage over here. So Buckley Garage, it was like around $1 million over there. So after we do a lot of research, we are doing those repairs with less than $250,000. We just need to go out there and spend the money like efficiently. So that's what we do, and you can be confident that we're gonna do a good use of that money.
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna relinquish the floor. I just have 2 bigger questions to ask. One of them through you is cost share on some of these things. When we talked about recreational fields like we did a few minutes ago with the previous transfer of monies, I'm getting mixed signals as to whether or not there are user fees associated, if we're recouping user fees. So if a group or an organization or a league is using one of our fields, traditionally, whether it's this community or any community, there is a charge because there is a organized individual or groups that are using the field, and for the taxpayers' purposes to maintain those fields. I just want to make sure, I'm getting mixed signals of whether or not we are or we're not doing that. That's number one. Number two, $20 million is a lot of money. Oh, I know it's over 5 years.
We asking for $5 million.
You're asking for $5 million.
Not 20.
5 million.
Okay, thank you. So what a bargain. So 5 million rather than 20. But my underlying question is the same. Where does that leave us with free cash? How much do we have now? And if we dip in for 5, where does that take us?
Good evening, councilors. Hang on a second, I do have that with me. We started the year at $42.9 million. And so far, the council, let's see, has approved, let's see, it thinks these top
I mean,
3, and there's,
Excuse me.
Yep.
You mean the fiscal year that we started at 49? 42?
on July, free cash gets certified once per year.
Fiscal
And it's as
year,
of July 1, 2022. So on July 1, 2022, we were certified at $42,980,402. And we've had 4 approved transfers since then, which roughly brings us down to, minus the 100,000 that you just approved, it's roughly $42,250,000.
And the reason why this number was so big is because the Merrimack Valley gas crisis settlement monies, is that right? We're able to absorb that
This
money?
is basically because of the Columbia Gas problem, our ARPA funds we were able to turn into free cash. So there's roughly about $30 million worth of ARPA funds, and we had about 13 or 14 million that we generated, the city generated. That's how we got to the 40.
I mean, we were down like about 12 or 10. We were in that ballpark for the longest time, and we just jacked it up to over 40 million.
Yeah, you know, just a history of free cash, it's obviously the highest in city's history. Prior to that, the highest in city's history was 18.8 million. Last year, we ended up with 16.6 million. We used a lot in the year before. And from, you know, from 2000 back to 2010, a little bit before I got here, we had 5 million, and it's slowly grown to where we are today.
And my only concern, not the concern, but and I'll relinquish it for it. Thank you for all the time you've allowed me. Thank you. I appreciate this, which is one of the big reasons why we were able to move the money, one of the best reasons, the perfect storm, that we moved the money from Columbia Gas, and we were able to move that into the free cash, and I understand why we did that and how we were in a unique situation to do that.
Right.
But one of the biggest things that we as a council were told when that happened was when we started voting for these major capital improvement projects like 2 schools and a police station, unprecedented in a year span, that because we had this amount of money set aside in free cash, that gave us the flexibility to go ahead and do that. Now, I just want to make sure that as we start spending down that 42 million, and we're slowly spending it down now,
Yeah.
that we're not jeopardizing, because the way that one of my votes was it was not going to impact the taxpayers because we had that money set there. So I
That's
just don't want to
correct.
jeopardize that.
That's correct. So there's, we've transferred roughly 30 million this year. We'll be transferring another 30 million next year from ARPA funds into free cash. So we will have another 30 million adding to our free cash next year. Well, we're going to be spending some of it down, like you said. We're going to be using, we have to, roughly about 30 million of it or so, we need to kind of reserve to offset future debt service and our future budget line items will need to be offset with this free cash so that we don't raise taxes on anybody. So that's the reason. That was the reservation when we approved the Leahy School, the Oliver School, Leahy School, and the police station. My certification of the borrowing was the city, the mayor, and the city council would have to acknowledge that we would have to have a planned use of free cash to make sure to approve those projects without a Prop 2.5 debt override, and that's what so that's what our plan is.
Councilor Levy?
I have a question for you. I'm sorry. Mr. Yanela.
Not going anywhere.
I know that last year, we said that still the Columbia Gas owe like $11 million. Did we already get it?
Yeah, Columbia Gas paid us in 2018. We got all the money up front. I can't remember the total, 60 million or so, or 40, of the Columbia Gas. And we had roughly, we had a couple million left over, and just recently we used $2 million of that to fund the additional cost overruns in the police station. So we used the Columbia Gas reserve, I think we roughly had 2.4 million left in there. We used, I think, 2.3 million from the Columbia Gas and $1 million from our stabilization fund to give the police station new police station, the 3.3 million that they expected are required to complete the building. So that was the.
But I still are
So now the Columbia Gas money's all gone. You know,
So everything is
like
all gone.
100,000, or there's
so
some small sum left.
So everything is all paid right now.
Right, and the city is still spending some of the money in a separate account for the roads. I'm not sure what the balance in that is, but I know they're concluding much of the work in South Lawrence, maybe Jorge, and is there another year worth of construction? I'm not sure, but but for all intents and purposes, we got reimbursed from Columbia Gas for everything that we're going to get.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. What I would like to add, with your permission, is that we are also working with, as soon as the mayor was sworn in, I think it was a month after, and subsequent the swearing in, we met, I think, twice with both the state delegation as well as the federal delegation to sit down and talk about funding. Requesting funding for infrastructure programs, a list that was prepared by the DPW staff, primarily at that time was our engineer, Milagros Puero, and also our city engineer. We have a list of different projects that is part of this, the list that the DPW director presented. However, we also have meetings scheduled in regards to the infrastructure bill, the funding that is made available through the Biden administration. We are hoping to have another meeting coming up pretty soon now that the new governor was sworn in, for us to sit down, and basically the way we see it is part of leveraging. And based on what the city can give, what we can contribute, and what we're asking for all these capital improvement projects in the city.
Any other questions? Council, oh, you have, Council Levy, you still have the floor?
Yes, I have a question for Jorge. Yesterday at the ordinance committee, there are some people requesting to convert from two-way, one-way. We did the story not too long ago about that, no? The city engineer that was supposed to do it.
Yeah,
Did we finish?
we had the study, and that's why we are presenting this package, because converting, like, let's say we presented a package of 26. That was the first package that we sent. To be able to do it, we had to do new signages. We had to do a lot of, let's say, markings on the streets, a lot of signs, and we don't have any funds right now for signs. We are moving from here to there because we are really taking all those signs that are faded and putting new ones. And that's a lot of effort, and it requires a lot of money to buy signs. And to be able to do that, we had to present it in front of you, but we had to, get the money to buy those signs. That's part of this package over here, but we presented those 26, and in the future, little by little, we're gonna come in front of you and present more streets to, to convert them in one way.
It is possible for you to please resend again all of these streets that are converted in one way or two way or whatever that is the change of sort of.
Absolutely. I know it's on the agenda, probably stable. So, but we back and we're gonna come again in front of you to work on that for sure.
Who is working as the city engineer right now?
So we do not have a city engineer right now, so we are covering that. And we have the assistant city engineer too, working on that.
The assistant city engineer, who's
the assistant, that's Theo Rosario.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But if you need something, you can always call us about.
Rosario?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So, Director, so when Council President asked you, or was looking for a line item, basically with an explanation, and we don't have one, do you think that it's easier like that, not to have anything explained or what you're gonna do with the money? That way you have more opportunity to do more stuff. Because if you tell me that you're gonna use $1 million just to do streets, and Sullivan says you're not over $1 million, you cannot take from signatures So it's better to have it open like that, so you can move the money around and use it for, let's say, any needs that any council have for any district?
That's true, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, and I have a few other questions. I'm just gonna reiterate what the council president mentioned before in terms of having an explanation as of how much you're gonna, as of what is it that you're gonna do on each line item. I think it's important to, even though probably the $5 million or the amount of money will be a grant, a lump sum, but having an explanation and an estimated cost of what are you seeing or foreseeing to expend on each of those items will help tremendously as well, because now we know that we have funds on those line items. Even though it might be an estimated cost, as of 2023, we're going to spend $100,000 on sign, but at least we have that on paper that we actually approve this amount of estimated amount of money to spend on that, because it could be that all the money can be spent on one thing, and all of the other stuff it's not even touched because of the needs. It's greater based on the perspective of anybody that is up there. Believe it's more important, and then move forward with it. But at least we know, like, it's not a commitment, but at least we know that there is some funding on there. So a definition of what is it that you're gonna do on each of those line items, because they're very broad. It could be anything. And specifically, like, an estimated amount of money related to those items, so we know that at least we approve some fund in terms of getting those things done or initiated, at least.
Yeah, so I agree with you, Councilor, but if we do that, so that's what I think right now, just trying to put like a number on each and every one of the projects, probably we're gonna spend hundreds of thousands of dollars just doing studies and just trying to get numbers on what we want to do. So, and something that we are
I'll
saving
tell you what
money
I
now
meant.
is,
I'll tell you what I meant. When I
Yeah.
started back then, 7 years ago, I advocate big time to have signage for the secondary road through the mayor's office. We spent $100,000 without knowing how many signs we were going to need, but we did almost half of the city in terms of secondary road with $100,000 back then. That's essentially what we're looking for. We're not, well, at least what I'm looking for. I'm not planning or expecting you guys to expend hundreds of dollars to study to provide a specific number. No, it's until whatever that number gets us, because that's basically how you're going to be working on. It's not feasible to go ahead and do study for every single one of those, even though that's basically how we receive grants. We have a great amount of details every time that we approve any type of grant. We just have the $260,000 with a great amount of details on, and we just discussed possibility of changing those structures and those funds and those vendors. So with the city been doing this in-house, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be getting, a good amount of details and probably an amount of money allocated as an estimated amount. Even though we know that that might change, because it's more need on one specific thing than others. And we understand that you express a need of $20 million. That's basically what's gonna get the department to be in a good position. That's also an estimated amount. It could be 25, it could be 16. We don't know. We're working based on an estimate. But based on that, we should put some numbers and letters and last names, how I call it, on each one of those line items to be able to to continue. Just like when we do the capital improvement plan. This is just like the capital improvement plan that I see. I see like maybe 4 or 5. Yeah, maybe 4 or 5. When we do the capital improvement plan, we define each line item, and then we go ahead and borrow the money. Same thing.
Yeah, I think this is, so I think because we are planning to, do some work when this summer season, we wanted to send you something quickly, and this is the best time now to work on it, the winter to prepare for the summer. So we do not have the specific numbers on each item, and now in my department, I'm by myself. I don't have a capital asset manager, I don't have a city engineer, and I'm working on my health. So I really have a lot on my plate. We can work on it. If you want, we definitely will send you the information on that. If you want to vote on it and give us the confidence on that we are gonna do the right thing and we're gonna spend this, the way that the mayor want us to spend it, like right now there is that's my thought right now. So I think the south side of the city, we're doing a tremendous amount of work over there, a lot of new sidewalks, roads. It's time to invest a lot of money in the north side of the city to at least balance, the conditions of our roads and sidewalks. But if you want that, definitely we can work on it. So I cannot promise that to send it to you immediately, but we definitely can send you numbers.
Can I make? Mr. Chair, maybe we can make a recommendation or present a recommendation to you that we can probably present to you 4 categories instead of a broader list, and then allocate the funds as your request on each one of them, and submit that before the date of the City Council approval. So we'll break it down instead of, let's say, 10, 12 different projects, summarize it in 4 or 5 categories, and then present it to you, or based on the projects that we do. Because let's say if you do, sidewalk repairs would be a line item. If we're fixing parks would be another line item, but try to condense it instead of having a long list. And keep it a little broad because of, the changes, that costs. Look at the different capital improvement projects that we have, even with the police department, all of our school, other construction projects. We don't know how the economy is. So if we set X amount of dollars in one category, let's say, and then we need an additional, we have 12 items. We put $1 million, and then it comes out to be that, we didn't miscalculate, but prices went up. So, and maybe break it down into 4 or 5 categories instead of having all the lists. I think that would be reasonable to ask.
No, that's fair. That's fine. I mean, what I'm seeing on some of these, and this is my personal opinion, not the vice chair of this committee, but what I'm seeing is that we've been condensing a couple of things here and there. Communication has been condensed to just the council president, and not going down to the councilors on time. And information on papers is being a little condensed and summarized and this and that. And at the end of the day, I feel like we're just coming here to vote and not necessarily have a lot of information in terms of how much we spend in the funds or on other things. It could be anything. Communication is an issue, and through the papers and vocal as well. And that's basically how I personally see this. A lot of information, it's a lot more support to the administration. Trust me, when we get informations in regard to what you guys are doing, it could be a plus situation to everybody, because we already, there's no way to speculate. You got everything.
Good.
That's how I see it, but I mean, definitely that's a good plan, appreciate it. It's better than what we have right now, and let's work on it. Councilor, there is any questions regard to this item? All right, I call the questions. The motion, there is no motion yet on the table, so I ask for motion.
Motion to approve and send it to the full council with favor recommendation.
Second.
All right, there is a motion on the table, properly second. There's a question. Any questions in regard to this? Do you mind working on that information for next week? Thank you. I call the questions. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. We have nobody online, so we can do this. Councilors, we have a couple of the items. We have at least not necessarily open the floor, but discuss it. We have item 42922. We had the recycling director here. Once we open this item, I've been advised that we're gonna be losing 2 members of the committee. So before I open the item, I don't wanna lose quorum. I'm gonna leave that item at this level so we can open it up at the full council and remove that item based on the rules that we have, and be able to discuss it at the full council. Otherwise, I might lose quorum tonight.
Mr. Chairman, I would just remind the chair that, that if this is something that the chair wants to bring it to full council, just to make sure that it's, the clerk right now is putting together the package for the next Tuesday's meeting, to make sure it's under old business to provide that opportunity.
Yeah, we'll put that on the old business, if we can just put it on the note. Item 429, 42922, which is the transfer. No, give me one second. 428, yes. 42822, which is the authorization to spend grant funds for the recycling division program, and this is a grant of $56,000. So I would like to have that on the minute to be placed on the agenda as an old business. And we move forward with the agenda. We have item 0623, which is the approve of a contract for services performed in prior fiscal year. It's for the amount of $14,000. Councilors, there is anybody that have any questions in regard to this $14,000? Floor to the advisor. Do you have any information in regard to this? And if you can provide it to us, we highly appreciate it.
Which item is that? Sorry?
0623. 0623, which is the $14,000 from previous years bills.
This is the item. It's hiring a bill for some consultant, but it doesn't say the consultant bill. Oh, here it is, here it is.
Oh, yes. Now I remember this item. On 2 occasions, it was in December, this vendor, which is a marketing company, prepared a video for during the holidays, Christmas holidays of 2021. And subsequent that this video, they have also prepared another one for Stoughton Park as part of the creating public awareness, and also the city showcasing the projects that have been done during Christmas, as well as the park. Unfortunately, in conversations recently with the vendor indicated that he has never received payment for both work. So I told him, no, I said, work that has been done, I brought it to the attention of the mayor, I brought it to the attention of the CAFO, and we decided to bring this item before you. This was this was an oversight of not paying this individual for this amount of money. This was 2021, and I believe the work that has been done was, whether with the park, was sometime in May, and it has not been paid. So we'll bring this before you. I think it was an oversight. Obviously, we'll take the blame. The administration didn't. This was made as a request to start, informing the public of the work that has been done. The gentleman did his work. He did and it was not paid. That's a simple explanation that I can give you.
Can you specify the time when you guys, when they did the video?
The first video was for the holidays in December with the
year?
Christmas, not this year, no. It was in 2021.
2021.
So the administration was sworn in December 15, and I think before the Christmas lighting, the work was done. Then with Stoughton Park, if I'm not mistaken, was in May.
All right, councilors, there is any questions in regard to these previous bills of $14,000? Council President LaPlante.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So where is the money being currently, where's this money being spent now to pay for this? Which account?
I think it comes through from the mayor's account, if I'm not mistaken, correct? Yeah.
The mayor's office needs permission of the council to pay a prior year bill out of current year funds. They have money in there, in the mayor's office, other purchase services, they have the money.
Should that be, I would just think that should be part of the memo, where the money's going back to, and just for the record, that's unclear. It's an easy fix. If we could-
Usually we don't put the account numbers, it's because it's approval of but we can, but I mean, usually we just ask the council to, permission to pay a prior year bill out of current year funds. But it does I do happen to have the account number,
It's the account number's not that important. I just want to know which, I mean, if the school, if the recreation department had a prior year, we know it would come out of the recreation department.
Right.
It would say recreation department. Here, it didn't say what department this was coming out of. That's all, I don't need the 00265. I just want to know where
Coming out of the
department.
mayor's budget,
Out of
right.
that, out of which budget, right?
gotcha, yep.
Thank you.
Any questions in regard to this item? All right, there is no more questions, so I entertain a motion at this point.
Motion to approve and send it to the full council with favor recommendation.
Second.
All right, there is a motion on the table, properly second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Councilors, we have another item on the agenda, which is that item 42722, which is the payment of previous year's bill of $31,739.64. This is for the IT division. So expand the opportunity to explain a little more on this item. Mr. Advisor? Mr. Advisor?
Yeah, I think these are some invoices that Carlos Castillo, our IT director, found. I don't have the copies in front of me, but I know they're in your packet. I think it was Verizon or copiers, I'm not sure which. And there was some, so he found these invoices that when Luis Santiago left, the previous IT director, and he came on, there was some confusion in the office. Luis paid a lot of these bills himself. He was trying to have one of his staff, pick up the bill paying process, and they found these bills. And he has established that they have not been paid. He worked with the purchasing department to make sure these bills have not been paid, and worked with a vendor. And so we're holding off the vendor pending council approval to pay prior year bills out of current year funds. which is the, coming out of the IT budget. That should be in the memo, I think. I don't have his memo in front of me, but.
Councilors, there is any questions in regard to these bills? I entertain a motion at this point.
Motion to approve and send it to the full council with favor recommendation.
Second.
All right, there is a motion on the table, properly second. Any questions? There is none. All those in favor, please say aye. The ayes have it. We have three more items, actually. Before we go to that, to item 41122, there is two items from, from McCarthy, that's, he's here today, which is item on the second page, 35722, which is the expenditure of fund for $555,000 for the Hancock and Dolly intersection redevelopment. Councilors, at this point, McCarthy is here with us, who was just explaining that the documentation, if the documentation could be pending, that he'll be able to send it to the city council, but be able to have this approval tonight. I mean, this recommendation to the full council, if possible, with 37522.
Okay, thank you.
So, councilors, if you guys want, we can take it off the table matters, otherwise we'll wait.
So move.
There's a motion on the table,
Second.
properly second. All those in favor, please say aye. The ayes have it. Item 37522, which is expenditure of $515,000 for the Five Corner redevelopment at this point.
Good evening, councilors. Daniel McCarthy, Director of Planning and Development. There's also a companion document, document number 99 of 2021. That is a grant. This, I had first presented this to the Budget and Finance, and I had talked at that time when we first presented it, I had made a promise that this was during the last, I think the Vasquez administration, when it first came up, and we were, the city was working on a program called Complete Streets, which was a number of identified intersection projects that were being funded through a state program. We had 15 projects identified 7 years ago when this project started. At the end of 2020, we thought the projects had all been expired, but State Representative Frank Moran was able to secure $398,000 for the final project, which was a very important one. It was one that I had proposed 7 years ago. It's the improvement of an intersection at Hancock, Doyle School, and Floral Streets. It's actually an intersection of 5 or 6 streets. There's actually one expanse between two corners that's 110 feet of asphalt that children have to cross. And this is, this intersection takes children directly to both the Hennessy and to the Gilmet School. So it's a very important intersection, safety-wise. So the estimated cost when we submitted this to the Mass DOT was $919,000, and that was 7 years ago. So when we get the $398,000, just I'm concerned about how we're going to get the match money. As I said, we've gone through a couple of administrations, and this mayor promised that when next free cash was done, he would secure the money to make sure this intersection improvement happened. Actually, so I had worked with the engineering company of TEC to put this out to bid, and we actually had the bids came in today, and we were concerned that this might come back very high. Looking at the age of it, it actually came back almost $200,000 less than the bid. And so with the engineering services to it, we should be able to do this under bid budget, and all I need is the appropriation. So the two documents, document 90 of 2021 would be for the appropriation of the Complete Streets grant package. Now, I did not have the documents sent up prior to this. I came in tonight and I spoke with the chairman. I said I'd be more than happy to just present the documents and come back, but we discussed it, that there's a very important project that we can move forward, that maybe we could have this sent up, and I could provide documents to the full council. But either way, I'd be glad to come back in 2 weeks, or I'd be glad to get a vote tonight to have this sent up. So the $398,545, you should have, do you have a package? I think I left 4 of them though, up there. Mark? So the $398,000 is a Mass DOT complete street grants from fiscally,
But
what's that?
75.
What's that? Okay.
Stick to the 375,
Yes.
22 first.
So 375, okay,
That- all the
375 of 22 is the funding that was estimated by the, our engineering company to, as a match for this amount of money. So the city will be paying $515,000 out of free cash towards this intersection.
Councilors, we have an allocation from free cash of $515,000 to this project. So I entertain a motion at this point, so we can continue the discussion.
I have a question before.
For the question. For the question.
Do you want to make a motion?
Yes.
Motion, and we send it up to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
All right, there is a motion on the table, properly second, discussion.
Thank you.
Council
Mr.
Levy.
Yes. So right now you are requesting 550,000,
Correct.
okay? And this is the match from the city.
That is correct.
And how much is the other amount that's, you mentioned?
The grant is for $398,545.
What you mentioning here is the 550,000, that is this is the grant that you have,
No,
the free cash.
this is free cash. This is a
Okay,
city.
that is match from the city.
Correct. We're matching, that's the city's funds that we're using towards this intersection.
Yeah. And how much is the other amount that we going to?
The state is giving us $398,545.
That is a grant, exactly. So that's the cost for this is gonna be almost $1 million right now, no?
What's that?
Yeah, yeah. It's practically close to the $1 million.
It'll be close, because as engineer, the bid came back at $780,000 for the construction and $86,000 for the engineering and oversight. So it's $840,000. So we'll be,
8,000,
so we'll have about $75,000. And with the recommendation was to keep that money as part of this, just in case there are overrides or add-ons or anything. There's always unexpected expenses that come up, and that way we'll have a cushion. I won't have to come back if that does arise. And if it doesn't arise, hopefully I'll be returning that cash back to the free cash.
Okay, thank you.
Councilors, there is any other questions in regard to item 37522? Point of clarification?
Just through you.
Councilor Rosario?
Yeah, just through you. So even though it looks like it's $1 million, the city will only put $515,000 into this project,
That's correct.
correct? Because the other money comes from the grant.
Correct.
Just to clear that.
Council President LaPlante?
Yes, thank you. So let me just say how excited I am about this particular area. And back when I was a young city councilor, I represented this area, and that area was always like, my God, it was crazy to have to walk the street and cross the street there. And I had to cross it many times, and it was crazy. So I am so happy for whoever district this is now that represents that this is a fantastic money to being spent to improve that area. Near there's a place called Van Dune Park, which is at that corner right there, right?
There.
It could use a little bit of help. It could always use a little bit of help, the fencing, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know how much of a overlap, because you're doing the sidewalk and you're doing the street assessments over there, but I'm kind of overstepping my boundaries here a little bit, but if you don't mind, if there's any way to give that park a little love, it could use it, whether it's signage or something else. I know that we're just about to spend $5 million on DPW overhauls, and I get that, and that may be part of it, but that little park right there, if we can move maybe signage or something over there to give that park a little bit more, that'd be helpful.
I brought a package of the program, of what the exactly it has. So the sidewalk and crosswalks at the point of. I'll provide you all a copy of this before we leave, but there's a diagram at the back of that showing the plans, which includes the streets and the sidewalks around Van Dorn Park, including handicap, ADA compliant crosswalks. There's also going to be some intersection shortening so that there'll be no more intersections or crossings that are 110 feet apart. Doyle Street will be extended and sharpened. Doyle Street was made one way, and we'd like to, as again we mentioned, there's the Hennessy School in the winter has awful problems with the traffic because it's when there's snow events. So we've been looking at this entire area, the Van Dorn Park, Safe Routes to School program has been considered to use more money to do the sidewalks, especially down by the Hennessy on Hancock Street. But this is an important start.
Councilors, any questions in regard to this item? I have a few questions. So, just to piggyback on Council President LaPlante, what he was saying about the park, I think this is the only park that is being denominated as a dog park.
There's supposed to be one other designated dog park down by the river near the Sheriff's Department, but
Yes.
Dogwood Park, but yes, that's correct.
You know what's the huge difference between the two?
What's that?
You know what's the huge difference between the two?
No.
That one, the other one, it's around the river. This is around houses.
Yeah.
So a lot of complaint that we have got, it's about, dogs being left alone
Right.
and just pooping, not picking up the, what's left behind, and not having some type of material that absorb the smell of what is left behind. This is around a lot of houses, and we don't have that assessment. So if there is any funds that are going to be allocated for anything else, I think that we should be looking into that portion of the project that is being left behind. Another thing about that park that is in need as well is that park back then 8 years ago was adopted by Columbia Gas. Columbia Gas is no longer around, and they were maintaining it. We have a new gas company, and I believe that the assets of Columbia Gas now are their assets. but also the responsibilities of Columbia Gas should be theirs. And they, in a good faith, actually offer the city to adopt this park and do improvements that's being left behind, left alone for quite some time, since we've been having a couple of years before we have the explosion. Columbia Gas was already lagging on that. So if we can get in touch with the new gas company in Lawrence, figure it out a way that they can maybe adapt it again, change the signs of them doing it, and kind of like, thinking outside of the box to see what we can do in terms of improving the park, signage, some type of material that absorbs the smell of what's left behind, and other important things around and responsibilities around a park for designated for dog walking.
Yeah, I'd be glad to address both those things. I know I did work with Eversource during the crisis on the conservation level, so I do have some numbers I can call and find out whether or not they'd be willing to participate with this. I don't see why they wouldn't. And again, there's also, I can look into getting some grant money. There are different mechanisms. My wife is actually in the animal business, so to say. She's a pet groomer, and she's adopted a couple parks in the past. So there is the simple plastic bag dispenser but there are also some composting type of mechanisms that make it easier for the cleanup as well. So I can look into that. Maybe a grant would satisfy that.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Councilors, there's any other questions?
Just a real quick question. I'm sorry, I don't remember is this District C or D?
D.
D? If I'm willing to help out on if there's a reach out to Eversource. The Van Dorn cousins were killed in World War II, and their story is now untold. If there's signage that could be put there, I'd love to work through you and with you to see if we do make contact. I think it's a home run for some of these major companies as everybody tries to embrace veterans and people who have given their lives. This is a home run for this corporate company to step up and do a signage, for example, to remember that. So I'm happy to, if with your permission and approval, I'd love to be able to work with you and see if we can make that happen.
No problem. Councilors,
I'm sorry, through you.
Councilor Levy?
I'm also on my best way to work with you guys. Okay, so please, just let me know.
No problem. Councilors, there is any other questions in regard to this item? If it's not, I call the questions. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Now we're gonna go to the second part of this item, which I'm gonna have to abstain myself, which is item 9921. At this point, I'll pass the gavel to Councilor Levy, so she can proceed with this item.
So document 99-2021 is the request for expenditure of the grant in the amount of $398,545. So, Councilor, any question?
Madam Chair, so this is the actually the acceptance of the money coming from
Correct.
from the Mass
This is-
DOT.
Well, it's been accepted. This is to appropriate it.
The second half of what we're just talking about.
Yes. So this is, there's a letter in there in your package from Mass DOT awarding us the money. I actually have been working with Mass DOT recently and with TAC Engineering. We did get a 1-year extension to complete this work. So we have plenty of time. I think the work will primarily be done during the summer to not interfere with the schools, but, well, as I said, we did the bid contracts openings today. We had a public bid, and it was good to see some of the prices from the construction companies finally coming down. So.
Any question? Can I hear motion?
Motion to send to the full council with favorable recommendation.
Second?
All those in favor?
Roll call vote, Madam Chair, only because the chair is
Oh,
here, and
because the chair
that might
is-
be helpful for the chair.
Council Del Rosario,
Yes.
Council President Mark LaPlante,
Yes.
and myself, yes.
I would mention the record reflect that the chair recused himself on this vote.
The next item on the agenda, which I believe is the last item out of the table matters, can I get a motion, councilors, to get item 41122 out of the table matters?
So move.
Second,
I have a motion on the table properly second to table item 41122. I call the questions. All those in favor, please say aye.
aye.
The ayes have it. Now we have item 41122, which is the transfer of a fund of free cash to a special project. This is $16 million over the next 2 years. Was put together by our mayor, Brian De Peña. For a little bit, until we get the advisor back. Well, we just opened the floor in regard to this item, so if you can
Yes.
explain to us a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. Early 2022, the city received a total of $57.3 million in ARPA funding. When Mayor De Peña assumed office on November 2021, there were a total of $28,675,922 in funding available. In December 2021, the city entered into a partnership with Harvard Kennedy School of Government and contracted Caras Community Investment to conduct a community assessment through stakeholder engagement and consultation. The general goal were basically threefold. One, to identify the pressing needs and demands of the community. Two, recognize our community capitals. And three, discover potential ARPA funding priorities. Conversation held with several stakeholders included nonprofit organizations, local businesses, investors, financial institutions, and residents through surveys and talks. On October 25th, 2022, the Massachusetts Department of Revenue, Division of Local Services, notified the city of the particular exception of allowing the municipality to transfer its ARPA funding into free cash. Through discussions with the administration, the recommendations were made to the mayor to use portions of the ARPA funding to subsidize major capital projects such as the Leahy School and the gap financing of both the Oliver School and the new Lawrence Police Headquarters, among other projects. The City Council accepted the administration's recommendations and formally adopted the disbursement by form of a resolution on February 15, 2022, with the assurances that part of the remaining funding are allocated to fund other pressing needs in the city. Mayor De Peña has now outlined 7 overarching policy areas in which we might categorize potential investments. By approving these priority areas, it will help us evaluate numerous specific funding proposals and initiatives. We welcome your feedback and suggestion for specific funding priorities and programs within each policy area. We have brought one appropriation ordinance of ARPA funding to the City Council for review, so that will eventually be presented at the next City Council, as well appropriations to be included. Our goal is to put this ARPA money to work expeditiously. In this case would be the free cash, whatever has been converted, and energetically help our community recover as quickly as possible from COVID-19. We suggest the council should review the 7 priority investment priorities through the lenses of sustainability efforts, advantage, and measurable impact. We want to consider the long-term impact of the investments, not just during the one-time infusion of federal resources. We also want to consider factors such as leverage, meaning how much money may follow, alternatives such as other sources of funding available for the programs or projects that we have, transition, which one, when one-time funding is gone, and measurable success and impact, meaning geographic distribution and quality of the effects. Our 7 policy areas for consideration and discussions include health and human services, arts and culture, parks and recreation, housing, economic development, neighborhood safety, and outreach, publicity, and technology. Each of the policy areas provided to the council in the preliminary recommendations is allowed under the federal law and rules that dictate the use of ARPA funding. Upon the final funding plan adoption, we will then seek proposal from specific programs, projects, and activities from interested parties through a RFP or RFQ process. We have included within the memo to you the funding, the 7 categories that has been presented to you, which is this document right here. The total funding, if we combine the $16 million that we're proposing to be used into during this current fiscal year and the next, is $60 million. We have combined this amount together with the home ARP funding, which you have already approved, which is the $3,174,000 and change, which gives us a total of available funding of $19,174,052. In the first category, health and human services, the total funding that we're proposed, which you have in that document, the first page, would be $2,900,000. The specific activities that we have recommended, or the mayor is proposing, is immigration services, training for citizenship exam, permanent residence card, and immigration application assistance. The first category is $750,000. Second would be COVID and other viral strands and public health related issues. As you already know, COVID is not over, and the numbers are increasing, even though for this month, they have shown that it's, the impact is dropping, but we have other issues, and people are still visiting the city and also the center to get vaccinated. So we have allocated $500,000 to this amount. The other categories is family development and HHS activities. HHS is other health and human services activities. We are proposing $1 million to be expended. And the last item in this category would be health disparity, children, pregnancy, women care, people with disability, and senior care. We have allocated $650,000 in this category. The second category is arts and culture. This would be is for an amount of $1 million. The specific activity is for support for the arts and cultural activities, forming part of the cultural heritage of the community. The third category is Parks and Recreation, for a total funding of $1.4 million. This is to support Recreation Department programming, including assistance to waiving fees for parents that cannot, pay for their children, the activities for their children to participate, and also supply uniforms, fund sports leagues, and staff support for an amount of $300,000. Another item would be funds for upkeep of parks, maintenance, new equipment for parks, and staff support. The amount is also $300,000. And the last item in this category would be youth development for an amount of $800,000. The fourth category is housing for the total funding of $5,674,052. The specific activities associated with this category is down payment assistance for qualified citizens, meaning for the first home buyer program, which is for an amount of $1.5 million. The mayor also wanted to provide and encourage, city employees not to live in other communities, but to stay here. For that, he wishes to provide $750,000 to city employees for the purchase of their homes. Every community has their workforce housing program, so we're trying to see if this can be of help. The third activity would be assistance for fire victims and promotion of renters insurance. We've allocated $250,000. And the Home ARP, which you already know and approved, which is for the $3 million in Home ARP funding.
Just a point of information there. We're still working on that item. So we're still, you guys are doing a plan with $100,000 that we allocate from free
Yes.
cash.
And
then
that is
eventually,
part of this fund, these funds.
eventually, we'll see the plan and we will approve the funds.
Yes, that's the only way that the funds would be released to the city, correct? Okay, the other category is economic development for amount of $5,650,000. Specific activities is one, support for small business development, including capital and technical assistance. City innovation for economic development, meaning that we're trying to help businesses not only get certifications, both to work with federal and state contracting, but also for them to expand their businesses in capturing new markets. What this means for the city of Lawrence, that a small business that is granted the opportunity to expand the business, they can also hire more people. The third activity would be support for the Lawrence Redevelopment Authority for staffing, fund development, consulting services for master plan development schemes, canal studies, etc. What we're trying to do in this specific, one of the main purpose of this activity is to increase the, see where we can capitalize or leverage the resources that we have under the ARPA funding. The mayor is under the mayor's vision is that we can, the Lawrence Redevelopment Authority can hire a fund development person to work with different organizations that we have that are basically providing technical assistance, and to identify future areas in the city of Lawrence where we can redevelop. One of the projects, there are several projects in the city and areas that we can basically beautify or basically redevelopment and generate or increase our tax base. And the fourth activity would be sustainable development and environment, which we're proposing $400,000 to be allocated in this category. The other category is Neighborhood Safety Initiative, which we already did a presentation. The amount is $1 million, which to fund public-private partnerships and to implement 11 strategies to address quality of life issues in the Lawrence neighborhood. Part of that has already been explained to you during the city council meeting. The last category is outreach, publicity, and technology for an amount of $1.550 million. The specific activities include promotion and marketing for an amount of $800,000. This amount would be to basically market all the progress, or at least to create public awareness in the community. So in other words, if there's programs for health and human services, the idea is that we make sure that the information is disseminated in the city, that people are made aware what activities, what type of programs that we have in the community. The other activity would be education funding programs for city employees, professional education and training and development. And last but not least is technology upgrades, whatever is necessary in the city, for an amount of $600,000. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the process that we would like, or we're recommending for us to follow, is that we have an open application where, our community partners can apply, specifically nonprofit organizations that, may have activities or programs that need our support for expansion, and based on the needs of the community. Once we receive these applications, specifically the application need to demonstrate their goals and objectives, the beneficiaries, how much funds they are bringing at the table to implement this project, their project, and then what the budget amount is. We are requesting probably a 2 or 3 page document. That's about it.
Councilors, I open the floor to any questions in regard to this item. I have a few questions, but I will expand the opportunity to any other councilor. Councilor LaPlante, Council President LaPlante.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. So let me just put a little context here. This is obviously a $16 million, but it's a $19 million because they're combining the home as well as the ARPA fundings together.
And to be distributed in two years.
In the history of our city, when we're talking about purely discretionary funds, which is what this is an incredible amount of money and resources at one time that has never been seen in the city for a cash infusion on anything. Let me let that sink in. Usually when we're dealing with the budget that we deal with every year, X number of dollars are totally restricted for education. We have to spend X number of millions of dollars. We have no choice. We have to spend the money, and that's the bulk of our budget. And then there's all the operating funds that we have in the city, of which there's never enough money for the operating funds, but we do what we can to try to get by, and there's very little discretionary. We fudge on numbers here and there. Capital improvement comes in. Finally, there's a little bit of an opportunity for us to use a little bit of scratch to do something. Now, but that's obviously restricted. This is huge. $19 million of new things that we're not obligated to do, contextually massive for the city of Lawrence. No other community is having the discussions we're having right now on this kind of cash infusion. Why? Only because of the perfect storm of Columbia Gas and ARPA are we having this opportunity. Other communities are having their hands raised, all these kinds of restrictions on expenditures of funds in all the other communities. We do not have that. For something this large, this immense, and I want to keep in mind, this council could have spent money prior to this administration coming on board and chose not to, and chose to allow this administration or whoever was going to win the election to have this day that we're seeing today, or this vision. So in a partnership between the council, this council, and whoever was going to be the mayor, and happened to be Mayor DePena, this is where we are right now. So 3 things come to mind. A lot of money being spent. You talked a little, through you, Mr. Chair, we talked a little bit about how, I mean, I can't go into all the details. It's just too much. It's just too much. So I'm going to talk very globally. There's $19 million that we're going to go out to contract with folks to spend it. I don't think this is money, much of this money is going to be, well, you tell me, how much of this 19 million ballpark are we going to be spending internally, and how much of it are we going to contract? You talked about nonprofits, so I heard that, and you're going to be putting things out to bid, and they're going to apply, and they're going to see our needs, and they're going to try to match our needs and provide whatever it is we're looking for. So we're not talking internal expenditures, we're talking external expenditures.
No, it's a combination of both.
Okay.
Okay, it's a combination of both. What the percentage would be is, I need to break it down to you, but we can do that. That can, give you a clearer view of what we want to do, our understanding of how we want to expend the money. However, I would like to make it clear that from the $57 million that we were awarded, part of the conversation, and I recall with the city council, was the question, how is it that we are going to expend these funds within the community? Are other organizations or other needs within the community, are they going to be met? If you take $16 million, because the $3 million that we added to this portion is federal dollars, and the $16 million, so from the $57 million, we're only requesting the city council to use $16 million following a great portion of the guidelines stipulated by the ARPA, by the federal regulation on how to use the funds. Regardless of the city being allowed to use to transfer the funding to free cash, it's only $16 million that we're requesting to use for other specific needs that has been identified, not by the mayor, but by our community partners.
I don't think there's any disagreement there, but I appreciate the clarification. So the big one is, my major concern here is that, is there enough talent internally and externally to pull this off? When we are, there's only so many nonprofits. We talked about nonprofits earlier this evening. There's only so many of them, and they only have so much capacity and bandwidth. We are so...
As a point of information, it's almost 600 nonprofits. Lawrence.
We have a lot of nonprofits, but my argument continues that, do we have the bandwidth, whether it's the intellectual capital, the experience capital among folks who are able to take this vision and move it? We only have so many people that have a skill set. Granted, there's how many nonprofits, but there's only so many people that got a skill set. So that's my first question, is to pull this off successfully, do we have the people skills to make this happen? That's the first thing. Second thing that's glaring to me that I'm not seeing on here, I'm always looking for, the mayor's looking outside the box, and I have to respect that and applaud that, but I'm also looking at bread and butter issues, the fundamental tenets of government, to make sure that the fundamental basics, the bread and butter issues, are taken care of. There is one bread and butter issue that's been ignored for a while. It's not the police department, it's not the fire department, it's ISD. That's a department that has been all over the place, has not got the resources, but it's a central, important element, and it crosses over so many parts of our people's lives that I'm not seeing. This is an opportunity to do something there. last point, and then I'll be quiet. This is so big. I'm almost inclined, and I could be talked out of this, of course, but I'm almost inclined to say, let's have an incredible one special meeting just to deal with this, because this is so big. This is bigger than, in many respects, the budget's big, and of course it's the most important vote we take every year. But this is substantial. And in a regular city council meeting, to spend 20 minutes on $19 million doesn't seem to me to be the right amount of time to really explore in depth counselors' questions they may have about specifics, and then the mayor's office bringing their partners in to explain in more detail the questions that counselors may have regarding an item. I'm not going to go into the details of the items because there's just too much. So I throw that out there, and I don't know what the reaction is, but I throw that out there as an option.
Can I answer? Or make a comment? Yes. Remember in my introduction, we've asked you, we don't want you to accept this. We gave you the opportunity to make recommendations. That's what I just read in the beginning. So the city councilor can make recommendations to the proposal. ISD is an important department, and we can, if you, during the session, or we can make recommendations, you make recommendations as councilors, we will hold that into consideration. Your first question in regards to, yes, I mentioned also in my introduction that we did do an assessment. Part of the assessment I mentioned was threefold. One of them is to review our community capitals. I think some of the, and this is personal, and which we have also discussed in our conversation with the mayor, unfortunately, we have only focused within the amount of nonprofit organizations that we have in the city. Only a few have benefited, but we do have the expertise in city. We have different companies that are here. Part of the funding that we are proposing specifically in economic development is to have, for instance, our accounting firms that we have here. We have several that can do audit reviews. Some of the smaller nonprofit organizations, their deficiency is the fact that they can't afford paying $2,500 to a bookkeeper or to a CPA in order to help them apply for CDBG funds, correct? So what we're trying to do is to help some of these organizations, for those that already are large organizations that can pay for themselves, but we can contract through a RFP process with a couple of accountants or bookkeeping companies that we have in the city that can help these nonprofit organizations manage their money or help them maintain their books. The other question I believe that you had, that if we can do it in a session because it's open, it depends on the council. But this is a recommendation that we made based on the information that was provided to us, as I mentioned earlier, through the Kennedy School of Government, and also through their survey and talks with the different nonprofit organizations that we have. But the percentage of funds that are going to be used by the city is included in here. I can't give it to you specifically now, but I can bring it to you or bring it to the city council during the next meeting.
Sir, is there any other questions in regard to this? All right, I have a few questions. Well, I don't know if all of you received the package before. I've seen this right now. And I think that, conceptual-wise, we've seen a good plan, but in terms of the details, as of how each one of those categories are going to be developed and how, and the specific needs that we have on those areas, we don't have that here yet. I can see a good topic to spend some money, and I see the needs, but it is perspective.
We can bring to you the reports that we have, we can add it to this, to the packet.
I think that it will be essential. I think that that should be part of this essential package to be discussed here. We would have completely different conversation right now.
Okay.
Because essentially, we seen, you know, a potential item here that it's gonna cover a lot of needs that we have. But in terms of identification of those needs, that I'm pretty sure you guys have done that already. And how we gonna, you know, approach and attack those needs are essential for me to look at in any specific budget. The first item, the Health and Human Services, we have a $2.9 million project that within 2 years we're gonna accomplish 5 specific things here. So I'll say, yes, we have those needs. We definitely can spend money on there. How we're gonna spend it, it's a different story. Same idea as we were talking before with the $5 million for the DPW. We need details. So if you have that,
Now, in terms of the spending, that's why we're gonna have an open process where we have the different organizations that would apply for it, to apply for funding. And they would give, you know, the goals and objectives and see based on the report that we already have, based on the needs, and if they meet those needs, then we will,
allocate funds.
yeah, allocate some of the funds, exactly.
So essentially, we don't have a specifics, the details as of how we're gonna spend the money. We're gonna open up the process through an RPR process. But my question would be, for you to go out to bid, you have to have an RFP.
Correct, and then the RFP, it's just like the federal government would do at any agency, that they would tell you this X amount of dollars that they don't give you specifically. They would give you, our funding priority has X amount of categories. Based on your expertise that we have in the community, then they will tell you, well, we need for $500,000, for instance. And then you will ask them, okay, let's look at your program. So the RFP process that is going to be advertised would have all those details in the document.
Do you
It
have
would be
those,
announced.
do you have those RFPs?
We requested our purchasing contract to work on it. We met as a committee, and that's another thing I would like to mention, and the mayor wanted to, and I forgot to mention it, is that when we met to, the mayor selected several departments involved, or that would be, you know, to make recommendations concerning this program. We had procurement in the process. We had planning and community development in the discussions. And some of the, our employees have been here for 20-something years that do know and understand how this project works. And we gather as much intelligence that we can based on the reports that and the findings that we received. And the purchasing agent is right now working on a RFP to be, our RFQ to be submitted with, once the city council approved this.
So essentially, it is fair to say that each of these 7 projects are going to be treated independently.
Independently,
From
not
each
as
other.
one, each
Yeah.
one of the categories.
So I will say
And
that,
based on the recommendations that we receive also from our consultants.
all right, I will say that it is fair to say that the $2 million, the $2.9 million for project number 1, the $1 million for project number 2, the 1.4 for the project number 3, 5.6 for 5, 5.6 for projects 5, and $1 million for project number 6, and $1.5 million for number 7 will be a completely different project. They might have some intercross from each other, but essentially they be treated independently.
Exactly, and let's say each applicant can submit 2 or 3 applications, but depending on the category.
So we're gonna have an open process that essentially, we're gonna have needs, they're gonna provide solutions, if we like the solutions, and then we're probably gonna be able to allocate funds based on what they say that's how much it's gonna cost.
Yeah, it's
To
gonna
do
be a
those projects.
competitive process, correct.
That's a little different than what we usually do, because you usually get a fund and a specific amount, and then based on that, we develop an RFP, and then we have a cap on that project, and this is how much it is, and then it get allocated to another organization. We get a percentage based on what is allowed by law, and then we oversee those projects with a cap on it. On these, we not necessarily have a cap, we have specific needs, and then we have money allocated for those needs, and based on that, we're gonna,
Yes, however, the selection, yeah, sorry, not to interrupt, but the selection process is gonna be a selection committee that would review each one of the applications.
so, on each one of these projects, 7 different projects, do you gonna have 7 different RFPs for each one of those?
No, we would have a general RFP with the different categories, and each one with a requirement.
So how much information you think you can provide from now to, I don't know, whatever, next 2 weeks, for us to be able to read and understand what you guys are doing truly?
I mean, if
Because
I
it's
have
a
the
lot of
specific
hours.
questions, then definitely we will bring a report to you and answer all the questions that you have.
I have perhaps, questions in terms of the housing. You say that down payment assistance for qualified city employees. Usually for the regular population, we offer $40,000. We usually offer $20,000 now. There's a $40,000 program that we're gonna allocate to those general public people that buy a house in Lawrence. So for this program, how we're gonna spend that $750,000. So those are the details, perhaps, that it will be essential, at least for me, to make a determination as of ensuring that the funds are gonna go to the right place. And I'm not necessarily against any of these, but I would like to see more details. Perhaps if each of these projects will be treated independently, I think it will be fair for this committee to treat them independently as well.
Yeah.
So getting information for Health and Human Services, all that details that go into that $2.9 million. For the 3.74, we're just getting a consultant getting involved that is gonna provide you the most effective suggestions for the city to spend those funds. Why don't we do the same thing with each one of these one?
Well, we did. We
You
had the
did,
Congress
okay.
investor, but you're asking for the report, and that's why we're gonna provide you with the report.
So, okay. So, councilors, I have no more questions. I'll say, let's wait for the report and see it, and read and ask questions at this level, if possible, if you guys want to.
I just one other question. What's the time frame for expenditures of the money? Are we relying on doing it within a year? Does it depend, is it a limited number of time? I mean, how much, if we pass in Tuesday $19 million, right? When does that money need to be
Basically
spent by?
$16 million, because the $3 million you already approved.
16 million, sure, thanks. So when does it have to be expended?
The $60 million will be expended during fiscal year, starting now 2023, 2024, 2 years.
So,
$8 million per year.
Just a point of information on that. This is essentially free cash.
Yes.
They have no limit. This is a free cash. We actually convert the ARPA funds to free cash, so we have no limit truly through the federal government or anybody. I mean, they have a target of 1 year in millions, but let's say that they only spend 7 millions, it's not like it's gonna go away.
That's a good point. No, that's a very good point. My other question is who is going to be responsible when you're spending 16 million, I'm gonna say 19, I realize but who is gonna be responsible for doing QA/QC? It's a lot of money going out the door, and we gotta make sure that we're getting a good product for those dollars. This is an awful lot to spend, and I'm not sure who's managing it.
Right, the city is capable of assuming in-house. And, the funds, like for instance, if we have an applicant that requesting $250,000, we're not releasing $250,000 in one shot. What we're doing is, we're gonna piecemeal the funding, meaning that because we're gonna require outcome measurement. So if you have an organization that says that they're gonna take care of the homeless, and we're seeing and evaluating that, they're not complying or they didn't fulfill their obligation, no extra additional funding will be released to that organization. So it's not a sense of entitlement. It would be that they have to have a strategy in which how they're going to use the funds, what they bring at the table, and how we're going to evaluate or how they're going to conduct outcome measurement for it to be successful.
The other thing, thank you, the other thing, and I'm putting on my significant 17 years of city council had experience on right about now, which is checks and balances for all these different things. If we're about to sign a check for $16 million, there is no more oversight by this council after we just sent $16 million out the door. That should make the administration feel both good and concerned, because you'd want to have at least some partnership and some skin in the game and saying, one branch having that total ability. Right now, unlike the budget where we know that X number of dollars are going to be going to personnel, X number are going to go to police officers and their books and whatever the money is going to, we know, we spend weeks in the city council, in this committee, pouring through the budget, and we know where this money is going to. And then expires at the end of that year. Now we're talking about a lot of money and it's going out, and my concern here is, for everyone's sake, frankly, is just, I want this money this is a special opportunity, and we can't mess it up. We're never gonna get 16 million thrown out at us again. Not in our lifetimes, and that's foreseeable. So this is unique. And I just wanna make sure that we're doing this, and I know that the administration wants to do this right away. I mean, I know that. I know there's the best of intentions are going forward, but I think that you want to have some breaks along the way, and I just don't see that baked in on this proposal. And I don't know what those breaks are, because I don't know if there's another community or another experience that we can point to and say, this community in Peoria, Illinois got X number of dollars and they blew it. I want to see the money being spent in Williamshire, Maine, I'm just making up names now, that's got a ton of cash, and they spent it wisely. They put these checks in place, and they were able to consort, they were able to do back and forth, and they really leveraged it and made some good expenditures that made their community from here to here based on that sum of unique money. And I just want to I don't know what the answer is, but this is why I think that a special meeting, perhaps, where these kinds of conversations take place among this group and the administration, might be healthy and might be useful. Because none of us have been in this position before where we've had this kind of thing. The mayor has never been in this position before where this is happening. And now we're thrust, both a blessing and a curse, we're thrust into this position where we're trying to figure out what's the best thing to do with this newfound money? We just won the $1 billion lottery. So, you know what I'm saying? It's almost kind of like that. But it's almost like that. If you think about it, if you don't have a sound financial manager who's going to send you through when you win that big money, that's my point. And I don't know, I'd like to get a reaction from you on that. I don't know what the
Yes,
answer is.
Definitely, and remember, your concern is also our concern. I would like to, and also to let you know that we have the trust as well in our city employees. The CDBG funding, to my knowledge, the city has never misused the funding. We have people with the expertise for years, as I mentioned earlier, that we trust, and we don't have any suspicion that they are not going to do a bad job. However, I do have a concern, the same concern that you have. I'm not concerned about $16 million. I've seen in this city in documents that have been reviewed that organization and this body has approved as well funding $1.6 million, in which $800,000 has been expended to staff. We're not going to do that with these funds. And these are organizations that are huge with expertise. And I can bring that before you and see how those funds has been expended. What we're trying to do is to make sure, and we're hearing you, and think that it is legitimate. It's a huge concern, and when we met as staff, a group of staff, not of 3, not of 4, of 9 people that sat at the table with expertise and knowing how to manage this program. And we have come to the same conclusion. We don't want these funds to be given to an organization in which the funding is not going directly to programs and activities, but instead they're going to salaries. It is not a problem like it has happened in the past. In many other municipalities, that's how they do it. You give the funds is for particular staff, and some funders are requiring only a 27% or 10% that goes to staff, and some of them don't even want private funding. They don't want any of their funding to go to cover salaries. And those are maybe requirements or conditions that we can consider, put it in the documentation, and we have spoken about it, that we want these funds to be used directly for program and not to benefit employees. As a matter of fact, they should prove that they have funding to cover for their own salaries and benefits.
Well, a lot of information has been on the table today in regard to that. And I think that it is in the way that you've been presenting this, it's something that we all expect you guys to do. And it sounds like you have a lot of information already. And it sounds like there is a lot of things to be developed. And I think that all that information should be part of the package.
I would like to know what specifically is required. I already had the report.
Let's put it in perspective. At least on my end, I'm not expecting to see much, but I'm expecting to see it all.
Good.
So essentially, any type of information that you think that this is how we're gonna spend these funds, this is the procedures as of the type of measurement that we're gonna take to make sure that the money is going towards that specific goal, and this is the specific measurement that we're gonna actually put together to cover ourselves, not to making anything wrong, not to do any wrongdoing, or any organization related to these funds. The entire program as of how you're gonna spend the money. This is our last time that we're gonna be able to see this as a counselor. We're not gonna be able to see nothing else. 2 years later, wait, this is the result. We might get a report as of how we improve the community. We might not. And I think it will be, fair to have it all on the table as part of the package. any RFPs, any type of information in regard to measurements to ensure nothing wrong is gonna happen, or this is the positive measure we're gonna take to be able to do this type of project. Also, those wrongdoings that were done in the past, bring it as an example.
Exactly.
Put it up there.
Yeah.
Put it up to the public, because it's important that the public knows this is how these organizations are spending our funds. And this is how we're not gonna do it. And this is the example also how we spent this amount of money before, and how we actually not gonna follow through the same thing. Hey, listen, there is always good things to learn from the past experience. But having details as to how we're gonna spend this is at least what I would like to see. At the beginning, I was thinking about, splitting this item into 7 different subcategories for the 7 different projects. But in the meantime, you told me that there is a lot of information that you guys already have, and the process of finishing. I think that it will be fair for the committee to be able to discuss that at this level and be able to talk about it and read it and see how we're gonna spend it, to do the work, the dirty work perhaps at this level, and be able to maybe make suggestions for that full council to reconsider those, and bring more information to you and be more prepared.
What we have heard, Mr. Chair, is from our council president, LaPlante, our committee member, ISD. We're gonna have those discussions with internally, the RFQ process, and a sample that would be used. A report that was conducted by the Kennedy School of Government, as well as James Karras, the Karras Community Investment, and a breakdown or more explanations within the different categories on the use of the funds. Am I correct?
Yes. I think you got a good amount of info. Yeah, I'll give you a few more in a minute. But in the meantime, Councilor Rosario would like to have the floor.
Thank you. Follow up what Council President said. At this level is great, but this is a special package, and we should have a special meeting, which it will give every one of us that whole package, and we can all start it together. What we can do, or what I would suggest to do, is we'll give the administration the time, and when they have all the documents ready, we should book a special meeting, so all of us are here with all those packages, and all of us will have, because if it comes back, they say it comes back to budget and finance, we might don't have a quorum that day. But if we have a special meeting, all of us will have something to say. All of us will go through it, then set it to 2 steps, and then come here, we'll bring it up, and then at the full committee, there's tons of questions that we could prevent that and ask those questions actually in one meeting as a whole for a special meeting. So my suggestion is give the administration the time, when they have whatever you think we need in those packages already, we can schedule a special meeting. It's just a solution. It's a suggestion, so we can all be here and we can all have something to say. It's great. To me, reading it is great. When it comes to details, it might sound better, it might look better, but if we all together also, we have one eyes, all of us together in one big special meeting with this big special project.
Fair enough.
Chairman,
Councilor Levy?
I would like to add something more on that regard. So just to bring the documents or all of the information that we are requested, we at least 48 hours before that we can do the request for that special meeting. So not to have the package on the same day or maybe later in the afternoon. So to give it the time to us to read it. And that is something that we are asking everybody, who's coming, just to bring whatever that information for any item is to bring at least the package, with 48 hours before that we can call for those special meetings.
Madam Councilor, Thank you for the information. We have sent from the mayor's office this information on Friday.
No, that's
And
okay.
the
but
only
we're talking
request we
about-
had,
yeah,
yes,
we're
but
talking
we will do
about
that,
All
yes.
of the other information that we are asking right now, just to have it before, so not at the end or the day
Or the same day.
On the same,
Will do.
on the same day.
Just point of information very quick on that.
But also, there is something that I don't know if, because we are saying that as soon as we approve this, it's practically, that's going away from our hand. But I think that maybe we should include it, that, I don't know, every 6 months or every 4 months, quarterly or twice a year, we should get some kind of report, on the progress of each one of the program that we, the different categories that we've been talking about.
Just a point of information very quick on that. In terms of the information that was sent to the committee, did you send those by email or just to the city clerk?
We send it to the city clerk to distribute the information.
Yeah, usually we get an email
Okay.
on that, and also the clerk, so including Teresa and including us directly, for specific items as an email with the subject item, the item number on the subject, and that way we know that we have that
Okay.
for a special meeting, for the special situation. So next time, just send it over to multiple venues so we can get it for sure. Councilors, there is any other questions in regard to this item?
I don't have a question, but it looks like we're gonna be sending this up today, which is fine. I think at the full council level, what I'm just in full transparency, I'll be asking all of us the question that I've pretty much brought to this committee tonight, which is, do we want to table it and have a special meeting, or do we want to vote that Tuesday on the 16 million? So I'll ask all of our colleagues next Tuesday how they want to proceed. There may be an appetite, so we'll figure out if people want to vote on it that night, or they want to really dig into it a lot more deeply, and I don't know what the answer is. So, but just be ready for that question on Tuesday when we take this and you give the committee report, and I'll be asking that question.
To be honest with you, I think that we should leave it at this level so we can discuss I mean, that's what I prefer. So we can discuss this, just treat it as any normal item that we have with a special commitment that we need a lot more information in regard to make a move to ensure that the 60, this is a special, I never seen this before. The second biggest allocation that I have seen was the $5 million that we just sent for the DPW, and sent then information requested, and I hope that we get it, because there is no more, nothing that we can do after. It's a typical allocation, unless that we have a special ordinance towards these funds, which we're not gonna get, we're not gonna have. The city council will never see another section that give us the opportunity to ask the specific questions in regard to also how we're gonna spend the money, different than perhaps the funds for the $3.74 million, which it's a federal regulated fund, which is a completely different situation. But I think that it will be, to me at least, it will be essential to keep it here and discuss like any other item and go from there. If we have a special meeting, by the way, that could be brought up to that special meeting, obviously, from the agenda, pull it up from committee.
I concur with much of what you suggested. The working committee to work through this issue is this committee, right? This is what this body was assigned to do, is to work through these things. Having said that, I think that we are in such a unique situation that it's unlike an appropriation transfer of $20,000 or $65,000 for the recreation department, which is kind of run-of-the-mill kind of stuff. This is so unique, this is so different, that I would think that we would want to invite the rest of our colleagues to be a part of the conversation, to hear it for the first time, because what the administration is asking in the opening remarks was, Let us know what you think. We're happy to try to work with you and potentially incorporate maybe some of the recommendations. And having the kind of cross pollination that we have, the 9 of us together, sometimes adds to that conversation. So this is a little different. I will, obviously, I'm going to respect whatever the committee decides to do. It's the committee's call.
Yes,
But-
but point of information there, if we, like you mentioned before, we move it up to the full council, and then the council have the options whether or not they wanted to vote on that night, or they want to just dip into it and have a special meeting. What I'm suggesting is keep it at this level. Request the special meeting so we can have the special meeting, and that doesn't, and this item doesn't become just a numbered item. Like, we have the vote, we have the yeses, we're gonna move it up and then go from there. I think that's for the best interest of the community will be to keep it at this level, have a special meeting for sure, and then from there, we can make a determination. But at least we know for sure that we have another meeting in regard to this and analyze those details. And the way that is being presented, we might have a special meeting. So I want to make sure that we do have a special meeting.
To add to that, I mean, I would like to, every one of us to have an opportunity to dig in before we make a decision on it. But again, we gotta have an open mind that if the administration is ready with the information before the meeting, so what's gonna happen? They say if they call you tomorrow and say, we got everything ready for you, Councilor Rodriguez, well, and we wanna move forward. Here's the packages, you guys do your diligence to read it.
Yeah, at that point, through you, at that point, we're having a special meeting. It's presented to the special meeting. Everybody have an opinion if they do, and then we pull it up out of this committee. We have a special meeting for sure, and all the information is being put on the table, meaning that it's a public information that anybody can request it at that point. If we just leave it up to what we have now, move it up, leave it with the amount of details we have at this point, the administration, something happened, didn't present the information, doesn't become a public information, and we move on and vote, it is a secret. It was never presented to the council. It was just items that were presented to the council. But if we have a special meeting with other information presented, it is public info, and anybody can request it at that point without going through the law and without going through any specific changes that might occur, because City Council just approve anything that is the broad idea of the item.
Chair, the administration is open to any suggestion. As we have brought to you, this is no secret agenda. We're dealing with taxpayers' money, and we have presented this to you based on our internal expertise and expertise that was shared with us through the community. I would kindly ask, because this, once we go with we are going to prepare gather as much information as has been requested. We already have one of the council members, and maybe next time when we meet, there might be other suggestion as well, but we are going to consider the ISD, public health and safety. In this case, that would be the category, health and safety, that we will present it and have it as part of a document, and until we hear further from the rest of the councilors. But whatever you requested tonight, we're going to prepare it for you, and for the council meeting on Tuesday.
And let's put it in perspective. Any information that you have, just put it up there. Councilor might have questions. It's a matter of just having more information instead of less.
Okay.
Councilors, there is any other questions in regard to this item? I entertain any motion at this point.
Okay. Thank you.
There is a motion to table. Can I hear a second?
Second.
Properly second. I call the questions. All those in favor, please say aye. The ayes have it. Councilor, is there any other item from the table matters that we would like to take out? I didn't hear anything, so I got an interest in a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
There is a motion on the table, properly second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Thank you.